Hello everyone. I'd like to say Bajari Gamarua, g'day everyone, how are you? I was going to say, you're taking side shots, are you? I've just started my Ozempic the other week. I think everyone put in on weight, through the pandemic we're going through at the beginning and everything. We've still got a ways to go, and I think it's so important to listen to the science. I'm from a science background myself, computing science and analytics and that. And I know how important it is to rely on the science, rely on the data, rely on the facts, but we need to do that in a way that's respectful by taking in people's cultural identity and also spiritual beliefs. I think when we engage people is so important. I'd like to acknowledge all the different places we're streaming to and recording. I think is so important. And here where we are at UTS, we're on the land of the Gadigal people, one of the 29 clans of the Eora Nation. Now we do have a beautiful harbour down there. It's only been raining a little bit, but it is, we say the most beautiful harbour in the world. And if we're out there in a traditional bark canoe, does anybody know what that would be called? And we do have a suburb in Sydney named after the bark canoe. It's called Narwee. It's out southwest Sydney, near Riverwood and Bankstown. We have that suburb. This side's Gadigal. If you look at the other side of the coat hanger, do you know what the clan is over there? You weren't expecting interaction, were you? It's Camaragal, and there's a suburb of Camaray named after there. Paddling out in the Narwee from Moraine, which is Circular Quay, you look on your right, you've got the beautiful Opera House. That piece of land there is called Jubbagali, is traditional name. And where the Opera House was an island with middens. You guys know what middens are? Collections of shells. The British took them and they used them in the first British buildings here. So if you go Macquarie Street, in the Mint, you have a close look at the mortar there, you see little specks of shells, which are the lime. Also, just the other side of the rocks, traditional name Tullawallada. You also go there in Argyle Street and some of those older buildings and look there in the old mortar and you'll see little specks of shells. Paddling out and you turn left and you're heading inland, you're heading west. What is the next clan after Gadigal on the left? It also takes an Olympic Park. Is anyone from Sydney? Wongal. We all need a bit of a laugh, don't we? We live in post-truth dystopian Orwellian times. I think that's pretty correct, isn't it? I'd actually just watched a production in 1984 the other week. So I sort of deja vu. Thinking about that. We need to be honest, I think, in that. So paddling along is Wongal. That takes an Olympic Park. The other side, where Bennelong's resting, is Wallamadigal. That also relates back to where the Opera House is, because Bennelong Point, because Bennelong had a place there. So important. We keep going, we hit a city that's named after the clan out there. Barramadigal is the clan, Barra meaning eel, and they're the eel people out there. And obviously Parramatta City is named after Barramadigal. In our language we have rolling R's or trills. Other languages like Spanish, Greek, Welsh and other languages do have the rolling R. So can you say Barra? Barra, yeah. So Barra, the eel, there's a whole creation story of the harbour and the waterways being created by a giant Barra. Barra is just resting off at East Balmain. Yes, little island called Memel or Memel, M-E-M-E-L, also known as Goat Island. I was going to say too that our totems are very important to us, totems all around the country. The whale is a totem for the Gadigal people. It would come in here and it would rest down a place called Gomera, now known as Darling Harbour, with its little calves. But unfortunately we've got a bridge there and we've got a marina, so they come in here and say hello, but they cannot go down there and rest with their little calves anymore, and it's also a birthing place. Pretty important places. But we did have a whale the other week wandering around the harbour looking at different places. I wonder through their DNA, they do know for the tens of thousands of years that that's where they actually were going in here. Other totems are Dinawan, the emu, and Bunda the kangaroo in language in New South Wales. So what's unique about those two animals apart from being on the coat of arms? They can't go backwards, yes, that's right. They only go forward. So when we move forward, it's important we acknowledge and learn from the past, and we also understand the present we're in. I was also thinking about, there's a bird here now you'll see around in Sydney. It's had a parallel with Aboriginal people. It's Aboriginal people dispossessed the country, come and live at Redfern, Surrounds, Everleigh, Surrey Hills, and being not having access to traditional foods, being blamed for your situation. Yes, that's what's happened to Aboriginal people here. But Redfern up there is a very important place because that's where the Aboriginal legal services and the Aboriginal medical services all started in the early 70s. That are all replicated around there. A place of resistance and resilience. I'm talking about a white bird with black tail feathers, a long neck and a long beak. Yes. Who am I talking about? Yes, the ibis. And what other cultures are sacred in? You are educators, aren't you? It's Egyptian culture called God Thoth, Thoth, and there's actually hieroglyphics with the ibis in there. And it's, please don't call me bin chicken, thanks. It's not my fault. It's you humans. You haven't cared for me country, the wetlands. I've had to come and live in the city. I'm trying to make the most of it. I don't have access to my traditional foods as I would. I do like it when it rains because I do go around and aerate and also find the little grubs and everything. So I'm trying to make the most of it. I'm a graceful bird compared to other birds. I'll get you guys to look at something for me in your phones. One thing, and I'm judging against kids and Google. Huntingbird Manuscript Vatican. Huntingbird Manuscript Vatican, and those online, look up on your computer, Huntingbird Manuscript Vatican, and you'll see something very familiar there. Yes, something very familiar. Our totems are very important. Unfortunately, another totem's not being respected, the dingo. It's being hunted around the country. It's considered a pest, just like Aboriginal people being poisoned and shot. And we shouldn't be doing that to these beautiful creatures that are part of our families and communities for many, many millennia. So Huntingbird Manuscript Vatican, what have you found? A cockatoo, yes. And what century is that? 13th century, 1241. One can only imagine what the popes and cardinals thought about this wonderful bird. So what's this bird like? Annoying. I don't know about that. I like watching them. They have a lot of fun. They play together when they get together, don't they? They can be destructive. Don't upset them. They have a long memory and they live for a long while. And they like being mischievous, don't they? And cheeky. They are mischievous and cheeky. And I think that's a good depiction of a cockatoo in the Vatican there because it shows that they do have attitude, which they do, don't they? Yes. One other thing about the ibis has been learned to kill cane toads. Terrible invasive species, cane toads, aren't they? Yes. Talking to Mob up the top up there, the cane toads killing goannas, snakes and crocodiles, obviously people's pets. Terrible beast that's been brought here. I would holiday in Queensland and Brisbane every year. And the cane, what happens is the ibis takes the cane toad to the water, by its head, it gives it a shake, and it washes it multiple times to get rid of the poison. How clever is Mother Nature? Yeah, and it learns. I wish only humans would learn when I look at the TV. We're supposed to be the intelligent species, but are we? I don't know. It's an open question, I think. And we're not, some places they're not believing in science and data anymore. Unfortunately, it's going to cause a lot of deaths, which is not very good. I said, look, I used to go to Queensland every year to visit my family up there in Brisbane. I was told cheekily that there was a natural predator for the cane toad. What do you think that is? It's called a golf club. And I've talked to Queenslanders and they say that. It's like, it's a bit cruel. I've never done that. But I can understand their anger at that cane toad. As I said, all the killing it does, and it's a terrible species. We need to find a more humane way to eradicate that. And we also have cute, terrible species like rabbits, and we have carps and everything, which are not good for our country, and we need to work a bit better. It's important we do have a moment's silence to pay respects to ancestors, pay respects to Mother Earth. We all become part of Mother Earth one day as ancestors. Pay respects to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, to Jewish owners, elders and custodians of past and present, looking after the country, spirit of country and culture that we all enjoy, being here since the beginning and time until the end of time, and reflect our journey and how important it is for people to get education and skills so they can fulfil their dreams and aspirations, and no one should be marginalised, I think. So if we just have a moment's silence, a moment of paying respects and a moment of reflection, thanks. Here in Sydney, we have the Georges to the south, we have Nepean to the west, and the Darebin, also known as the Hawkesbury, to the north. On behalf of Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, elders and members, welcome everyone here. Enjoy your time here, your stay. Have a safe stay, safe journey home to your family and loved ones. Enjoy your time here. If you can, try and connect with the water here in Sydney, either the harbour or the beautiful beaches, because I find them very soothing, listening to them, and thinking about the beautiful Barra in its journey to Pacifica, in the harbour and in the river there, and also about the beautiful whales coming in and visiting, I think are so important. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land never ceded. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Uncle Michael, for that welcome to country. Good morning. My name is Shamit Saggar. If you don't know me, I'm looking out with quite a lot of bright lights and trying to recognise people. But if you do know me, you'll know probably ACSES itself. If you're not, let me just give you the kind of 30-second version. A few years ago, from a political point of view, the view was taken that more could be done in Australia in terms of improving the outcomes for disadvantaged students attending university or indeed hoping and aspiring to go to university. And an important part of that is to take an evidence-based approach. And for that reason, ACSES was established, the Australian Centre for Student Equity and Success, building upon a decade-plus worth of work from the National Centre for Student Equity and Higher Education, NESHE. It's quite a big mouthful so early in the morning. So we are very much here and very much delighted to welcome you to our second annual Policy Symposium 2025 and bring you back to Sydney for that continuing conversation. If you cast your mind back to the earlier Policy Symposium, at that time, in the sort of, I think, late autumn of 2024, we're still sort of basking in the reflected glory of an Accord report. The ink had sort of mostly dried. Most Vice-Chancellors were kind of up for it, and things were looking good. They still remain good, but I think a lot of water has passed under the bridge between then and now. And I think if you were forced to kind of characterise the position we're in right now, the position really is one of putting flesh on the bones of that vision. A lot of the practical, detailed architecture of that vision is now being built and turned into reality. And very soon, I think we'll see the sort of practical outcomes in terms of what universities will be expected to do and be accountable for that. So we're delighted to welcome you to that sort of continuing conversation. Who knows where we'll be a year from now on that front. Can I also begin by thanking very much our hosts, UTS, Kylie Readman, the DVC academic, Sonal Singh, who's somewhere here in the audience here, but a great champion of ours, and of course Uncle Michael for the welcome to country earlier on. UTS is one of many universities that we've got excellent relationships with up and down the country, and we're very, very glad that you've extended the invitation for us to hold our second Policy Symposium here. Thank you very much. The third thing I want to do is to say a little bit about the context in which we find ourselves. I talked about the fleshing out. That's important. But there are other things going on in the world of higher education, and I don't want to dwell upon them, but I want to make sure we don't forget them entirely. The most important of all is that higher education is under attack. We are not necessarily the flavour of the month up and down the country. I'm not quite sure whether it's deserved, but the fact remains that we're on the back foot. And so our record on student equity, or you might simply say fairness, in response to the opportunity to get a higher education, our record, I think, is mixed. And so we should be sensitive to that. Overseas, there's huge challenges, particularly in North America, to what universities are doing, fundamentally in terms of their basis of what they're trying to achieve. And some of that may well spill over here into Australia. I'm sure many people in the room are deeply regretful of that. But let's not forget our role in opening up the academy, a vision that's going back many decades, certainly here in Australia, is a noble one, but it's a mixed track record. And that may well become part and parcel of the attack we see upon universities, talking good talk, but not necessarily walking a very impressive walk. And this symposium is about to sort of designed to help us answer that question. So that weaponization of universities in particular, I think we have an important responsibility to come up with an answer to that in terms of our collective endeavours. I'm not going to say a great deal more. My colleague Ian Lee is going to take us through some of the practicalities in terms of the next couple of days. This event is being, I think, recorded and live streamed. Very welcome to have you here. If you don't necessarily want to sort of be in the camera sitting next to someone you necessarily won't be part of, do let us know that. If this is kind of date night for you and your partner, you need to get out more often. But we are sensitive to the fact that people are here and we're respectful of their privacy as well. But I'm looking forward to 2 days of excellent conversation and debate. The flesh has to be put on those bones. The federal government is committed to that. We as policy experts, practitioners, and senior management in universities have an enormous contribution to make. So I very much welcome you to that ongoing discussion and debate. Ian, do you want to take over from there?
Thank you, Shamit. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Lee, the Director of the Research and Policy Program at ACSES. Now, before I have a little bit of something to say, I'm going to welcome Professor Kylie Readman. Kylie is going to give us the welcome speech on behalf of UTS. Kylie is the Deputy Vice Chancellor Education and Students at UTS, and in her role, she has focused on creating the institutional conditions for building staff and student capacity in learning, teaching, and the student experience, centered around academic engagement, belonging, well-being, and partnerships, and ensuring student equity is central to her work. And with that, I will welcome Kylie on stage now to give the welcome address.
Good morning, equity friends, old and new. It's really lovely to have a moment to be with you and to have an opportunity to say a few things. Thank you, Uncle Michael, for your warm welcome to country, acknowledgement of country. I would also like to acknowledge we're on the lands of the Gadigal people whenever we step onto this campus, and pay my respects to elders past and present, acknowledging them as the traditional owners and knowledge keepers of this place. Uncle Michael, I am a Queenslander. And toads I have a pathological fear of because of my upbringing, living up and down the Queensland coast. I brought my own children up on the lands of the Gubbi Gubbi people, and I know there's colleagues here from the University of the Sunshine Coast, so lovely to see you. I was very sad to leave the Sunshine Coast, but I was really glad to get away to Noongar land, where the ACSES team are from, and many colleagues here from Western Australia, to not have to deal with toads. Actually, and then I found out a lot of other amazing things about that land and that country. And now that I'm here, and I was waiting for you to ask, because I live on the lands of the Wallamatigal people, and that's the one that I know as you go up to the mouth of the Parramatta River. But also, no toads. Excellent place to be here. And beautiful waterways, as you say, and amazing natural culture and environment that we should protect, and we have a shared responsibility for that protection. So thank you for reminding us that that's a really important and ongoing responsibility of everyone who lives here. I am also glad to have followed up from Uncle Michael, because it's important that we ground ourselves through this 2-day symposium. It's themed student equity in an era of change, and Shamit's already noted the massive challenges that we're facing. But we need to commit to, in higher education, to recognise and redress the fundamental barriers to people that people face when they want to come to university. And some people face greater barriers than others. And I know you're in this room because you care about that, and because you maybe have experienced that. And maybe you're committed to that because you've been able to overcome those barriers and you have a lens on them that are different, that is different to other people who've engaged in higher education previously. Equity and excellence go hand in hand. For me, this is demonstrated perfectly by the determined and resilient students that come through the Jumbana Institute for Education and Research here at UTS every year, one of whom I believe you'll be meeting in a panel shortly. Many of those students are first in their family to attend university. Like many students from equity cohorts, they have some barriers to overcome. Universities are powerful institutions. We have a profound impact on our communities, and it's our responsibility to make our educational offerings accessible, inclusive, and reflective of the rich culture and heritage of the First Peoples of this country. I'm proud to say that at UTS every student learns how they can work with and for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as a part of the curriculum through the embedded Indigenous graduate attribute. And I'm very grateful to the colleagues who designed and embedded that in our curriculum. It empowers our graduates to continue to be able to contribute to support and work towards a more equitable Australia. It's important, therefore, that we open our doors to underrepresented communities. And not only that, but to ensure that their environment is nurturing and innovative, a place where all students can thrive and reach their full potential. And that's the basis on which every student who comes through our doors will benefit. We all know education's powerful in transforming the lives of individuals, families, and communities. You have engaged in, and there is extensive research to point to that, and the intergenerational benefits are extraordinary. This year at UTS, we launched our Pathways Plan to actively seek, attract, and support more students from underrepresented backgrounds, those who might otherwise miss out on the opportunity that higher education provides. Our strength lies in our diversity. Each student brings their own perspective, experience, and ideas. And the diversity creates a dynamic atmosphere that fosters innovation and creativity, encourages collaboration, enhances the learning environment. Everyone benefits. Widening participation is central to our strategic direction as a university, and there are clear signals that that's important to the department and to the sector generally. Because of this, our focus is on creating opportunities for those previously excluded from higher education. And our emphasis is that success must be defined where the student finishes, not the door through which they enter or where they begin. I want to acknowledge the work and advocacy of people who work to support student equity, each of you in the room today, for the incredible drive, resilience, and impact you're having here on the sector and in the sector. It has to be a whole of institution approach to work. And I want to thank everyone in this room, and there are a number of you who are equity practitioners, proudly wearing that badge, and program leads, institutional leaders, strategic leaders. Each of you make a difference to the experience that our students have in higher education, and I'm very grateful for that. Lastly, and it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge this, these are particularly tough times for our sector as a whole and for us here at UTS. Universities everywhere are dealing with uncertainty, financial pressure, an external policy and funding environment that is shifting and reducing around us. Our responses to that really matter. This inevitably places a strain on staff and on students, and that feeling is real and I regret that we are in that situation. It's happening at a time that there's also a global pushback against equity, diversity and inclusion. To be clear, making hard decisions doesn't mean stepping back from our values. If anything, here at UTS and across the sector, I think it makes our commitment to social justice, equity and inclusion even more important. Universities persist through all of the turmoil that they've faced in the past and are facing now because we need them. We adapt to these pressures, often under intense scrutiny, and that can sometimes give the impression of instability. I think what we're witnessing is not a breakdown, but a recalibration. As we come to terms with the new expectations of our sector, that we reflect on who we are and what we contribute to our communities and to this country, that we think about the centrality of what we are asked to deliver, the important goal, the first recommendation set by the Accord panel. We don't exist as universities to be a university. We exist because universities underpin a strong, equitable and resilient democracy. And we drive national and economic and social development and environmental sustainability. They are important goals and we are tasked with that. To do otherwise, in my view, is to surrender our students' future. So I hope that during this time today and tomorrow, you get a chance to think about what that means in the context of ACSES, fantastic hosts for this event, that you have some time to think about it in the context of your own institution. I want to thank and acknowledge the people who've worked so hard to bring this event together. For UTS, Sonal Singh, who you'll meet shortly, I think, or definitely today, Fiona Versey and the team at the Centre for Social Justice and Inclusion. From ACSES, Shamit, Saggar, Ian Lee, and the many members of the team here today and who have done a lot of work to prepare for this symposium. Over the next couple of days, we'll be exploring a range of important questions. We'll be hearing from students, practitioners, and both our Minister of Education and Shadow Minister of Education on what our future can look like to ensure that equity cohorts thrive in higher education. I'm delighted to have a room full of passionate and determined people from all across the country, with our shared aim of improving educational access, success and outcomes for underrepresented cohorts. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you the incredible depth of knowledge and experience in the room. It's a real honour to host you at UTS, and I hope that you enjoy your time here. Thank you.
Thank you for the welcome, Kylie. To everyone, welcome to the ACSES Policy Symposium 2025. I've introduced myself, and I would like to thank you for making time to attend the symposium in person and also for those who've made time to attend via live stream. We had our inaugural symposium last year and we were blown away by the amount of demand that we had for this event. And this year we filled the venue to capacity again, and we've got a few hundred people on the live stream as well. So we are really touched by the strong show of support and showing that student equity is at the top of our minds. I want to begin my welcome address by thanking our host, the University of Technology Sydney, and in particular the Centre for Social Justice and Inclusion, who have provided us with this beautiful venue for the next 2 days. And we can have rich conversations about advancing student equity over the next couple of days. I also wanted to express my sincere thanks to all of the speakers who we'll be hearing from in the next 2 days, sharing their wisdom and insight on advancing student equity in higher education with us. We'll be hearing from the Minister for Education, Jason Clare, later today about his vision for Australian higher education student equity, and the Shadow Minister, Jonathan Darniam, would also be speaking to us about his approach and policies on student equity tomorrow via recording. We will have the Executive Director of the National Institute for Student Success at Georgia State University, Dr. Tim Rennick, deliver the opening keynote tomorrow morning, and Luke Sheehy, CEO of Universities Australia, deliver the closing keynote tomorrow afternoon. We have a stellar cast of speakers on the program, and I'm looking forward to all of their talks. In particular, students are at the heart of all we do, and it is fitting that we will commence our proceedings this morning with a student panel composed of bright young minds who are the future of the sector and society. We will also have a regional student outcomes panel and a financing panel later today. This year, the theme of the symposium is student equity in an era of change. The Australian Universities Accord, which was released last year, and its final report made it clear that student equity is at the central of higher education policy in Australia and is of the highest importance. And since then, the commitment to advancing on the vision of the Accord and to advancing student equity has remained in the fore of the minds of policymakers and reaffirmed multiple times. Some of you may have noticed that I brought a paper bag with me up on stage. It's not a croissant, it's not breakfast. It contains one of the key messages from the Universities Accord. And I'll let you guess what it is. Growth. Over the next few decades, we are looking at growing the share of a number of underrepresented students in higher education and, more importantly, improving their outcomes. However, we have had significant change in the higher education landscape. The student profile has evolved significantly. For example, more and more students are studying part-time. Those who study are engaging in work while studying. There's more students in online study, and also Gen AI, which has been with us for a couple of years now, but which everyone, I think, is still grappling with. There are external influences, and Kylie referred to that, on higher education, including the cost of living and housing crisis. And we also have significant policy reforms. To name a few, we have the introduction of ATEC, we have the incoming needs-based funding, we have an expansion of regional university study hubs and the introduction of suburban university study hubs, and major policy changes to international student and visas, which will have ramifications for the revenue and funding of higher education in Australia. And over the next 2 days, we will discuss the implications of all of this for student equity. And that brings us back to the theme of our symposium, student equity in an era of change. The changes pose challenges and also opportunities in growing student equity and improving student outcomes. We have the best minds in the room today and online, and over the next 2 days, there will be plenty of opportunity to engage and set out the plan for student equity in the coming years. And I invite everyone to freely and generously share your ideas and thoughts. Now, on to more logistical matters. We will be using Slido exclusively for Q&A over the next 2 days. There's a QR code on your lanyard, and there's also a QR code on the table somewhere for you to access the Slido. For those who are live streaming in, the link to Slido will be popped into the chat periodically, and the QR code will also be displayed on the screen during question time, and anyone can use the code to access Slido then. Please share your questions for the speakers and also upvote, because the questions will be prioritized in the order that people want them answered. So more popular questions will get answered first. I was delighted to connect with many of you at the welcome reception yesterday. We held a welcome reception last year based on feedback we received on the symposium last year. Someone said that the symposium last year was good, but no drinks. What was that? We take feedback very seriously, and we wasted no time in taking that feedback on board. We do have an evaluation survey this year again, so please do share your feedback, and it will be conducted through Slido, and rest assured, we do take feedback seriously. So we will consider what you say and try to action it. Thank you again, and I look forward to the important questions, discussion, and engagement over the next 2 days. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome our first panel of the symposium, fittingly a student panel.